Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 29. Today's podcast looks at the subject of good manners as they relate to entertaining. Both hosts and guests may benefit from a primer on what to do or not do when communicating with each other. Have you ever considered what the gift you take for the hosts when you are invited out to dinner communicates? That's why I keep several boxes of inexpensive chocolates in the freezer at all times. It never hurts to be prepared.
Welcome to Communication Diva. I'm Jenn Swanson and I'm your host. And this is the communication podcast that helps you to improve specific communication skills in the hopes that you will improve your relationships both in the workplace and in the home or with your friends. So this is episode 29 and it is summertime and it's finally becoming summertime here in the Pacific Northwest in the Vancouver area. And we actually had an amazing, crazy storm here last night in the middle of the night. You'd never know it because we woke up to sunny blue skies, but there was thunder and lightning and it was really, really loud in the middle of the night last night. In fact, it was so striking and unusual to have a storm like this out here that it made the newspaper this morning first thing. So there you go, in the middle of crazy summer weather. A few of you may have listened to an episode that I did a couple of months ago about staging your house in order to sell it. And I'm happy to finally be able to say that we have sold our house and we'll be moving in about 2.5 weeks from now. And so that's great. It was a really tough market to sell in here. There were about 55 other places in the similar price range, similar type of product on the market. And so it was a really tough slog, but we managed to do it. And off we are, busy packing and getting things ready and moving soon. And the move will include going to a place that will have a brand new podcasting studio, home office / podcasting studio. So I'm looking forward to that. And when I get it all finally set up, I'll put a picture of it on the website. The website is www.communicationdiva.com. If you haven't checked it out, I encourage you to go over there. There are some written articles and blog posts as well, and pictures and different things. So check it out. Please say hello on Facebook. And come and follow me on Twitter if you like, and leave a comment. I always love comments, and I love to hear who you are out there listening. So because it's summer and because all sorts of home entertaining things are happening, people are having picnics and barbecues and events at each other's homes, I decided to take a different tack today and to talk about manners. And I actually wanted to call it, as a matter of fact, entertaining good manners. And what I want to talk about specifically today, and this might go on for a couple of sessions, I'm not sure, but I wanted to talk about what your responsibilities are as a host and what your responsibilities are as a guest when invited to someone's home for either a formal sit-down dinner or something more casual like a barbecue or just a quick dinner on the deck. And so I wanted to start off talking about the host and some of the tips and the etiquette pieces that there are around being a host of an entertainment or just a nice dinner party. The first thing is the invitation. Let's take a look at that. Now, it used to be that we sent notes in the mail, and maybe that still happens. But if this is a more informal thing, the kind of thing I'm thinking of, a lot of people are doing this via Facebook. I got invited to an evening little soiree at someone's home via Facebook not that long ago. Email is quite common, and the telephone, of course. So those are some, and then verbally if you run into somebody and person happens to invite you over. So those are some of the things ways to invite people. The other thing is to remember that if you do it too last minute, the person might not be free or might not be able to. And so if you're going to invite people over on the spur of the moment at the very last, you might just want to be aware that the person may already have plans and that just might not work out. So, maybe have a larger list than than the 2 or 3 people you're planning to invite, just in case some of them are not available at the last moment. So there's that. There's the invitation. How do you put it out? What way is going to work? It's no good to invite people via Facebook or email if they never check their Facebook or their email. I know some people, and they don't check their email for weeks. So there's no point. You have to actually phone them and do it the old-fashioned way. Another thing is the next thing I want to talk about here is what to ask people to bring. So if you're going to ask people to bring something, just think a little bit about what that would be. If you're planning this as a potluck event where everybody is supposed to bring something, which is fairly common, fairly standard, and pretty easy to do and acceptable, then, think about what it is that you're serving and what kinds of things that you would like someone else to bring. And take into account if there are allergies or food restrictions that other people in your party might be facing. I know I have a pretty serious nut allergy, so I always have to be really careful about that when I'm at a dinner at someone else's home. And so asking people to bring something sometimes is how it works, or you might just say, oh, no, don't worry, don't bring anything. Now, that don't bring anything actually doesn't mean don't bring anything, at least here in North America. If somebody says, oh, don't worry about it, don't bring anything, usually it is polite to come with something in your hand. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But so asking people to bring something. Be careful how much you ask them to bring. You want to do this appropriately. So if there are 6 people in this family that you're inviting over, then yes, they should bring something more than just one tiny little dish. Bring something that is, a good representation of the number of mouths they're bringing to have fed. So for example, when we go somewhere as a large family of, sometimes all 6 people, what we do is if we're asked to bring a Caesar salad and buns, we bring a really big Caesar salad that will feed the number of people that are going to be there. So if there are going to be 12 people at this dinner, then we make sure the Caesar salad will feed 12 people and bring enough buns for all of those people. So those kinds of things. And you might have to be pretty specific when you're inviting someone over and asking them what to bring. And specific about things like the amount that you want, the size that you want, and the allergies or food restrictions that there might be. And you don't want to go overboard the other way. If you have one person coming to a meal, you don't want to ask them to bring half the dinner, because that would be unfair as well. They might as well just stay home and, feed themselves and not go through all the trouble and the expense. I have a friend who was invited over for Christmas dinner to her sister's home, and it turns out that her sister wanted her to bring her own turkey dinner. So it wasn't really a clear, proper invitation to come over for turkey dinner. It was basically bring your whole dinner and come and eat at our house, which was going to be much more work than it would have been just to stay home with her family and have a nice quiet dinner at her own home. It was a little bit on the non-polite side, to put it delicately. So be careful what it is you ask your guests to bring and exactly how much. Now, leftovers, we're going to talk about this again from the guest's point of view in a moment, but leftovers, I've seen both schools of thought on this. I've seen both ways of doing this. And the way that I think is polite is that the person who goes to all the work of cleaning up their home, hosting people to come over, and then having to do most of the cleanup afterwards should get the benefit of keeping any of the leftovers should they choose to do so. Now, if you have too much in your fridge, or you don't like what the person brought over, or you know that you're never going to eat it, then of course the host is well within their rights to offer this back to the person. Say, oh, no, you take it home. We can't use all of this. Say it in some polite way. But if the person really liked what it was, it's expected, I think, that the host be able to keep the food. And usually what you do is you would transfer it from the dish the person brought so that they can take their dish home right away into one of your own containers and pop it into your fridge and keep it. And that's one of the things I love about entertaining, is that all this leftover food gets to be in my fridge, and then we don't have to cook for the next day or so. It's lots of fun. Cleaning up. Now, cleaning up as the host, it completely depends on how you feel. But my suggestion is that it goes one of two ways. Either you don't clean up at all and nobody cleans up while the company is still there, and you just say, never mind, we'll do it later, and you all go sit down and actually be with your guests and visit. So that's one way of doing it, so that the cleanup is just left for another time, and you maximize the time you're wanting to spend with this company and visit and have a good time and worry about cleaning it up later. That's one way. The other way would be to start cleaning up as you're visiting, if your space allows for that. And if someone offers to help, allow them to help. And then they'll feel less embarrassed or less imposing if they can jump in and grab a tea towel and help you to dry dishes and that kind of thing. So either nobody cleans up, or else let other people help you clean up if you're busy in the kitchen. They might not put things back where they're supposed to be. You can ask them to just leave the dry things on the counter. But it's also a social activity. So the person, one or two people helping you to clean up is a good thing. And the good thing about that system is that by the end of the night, your place is clean and you can all sit down in the living room, and when the company leaves, your place isn't a complete disaster. So that's another way of doing it. So those are ideas for the host. What to do, how to invite people, what to bring, what to do with leftovers, what to do with cleanup, and that kind of thing. And the one more thing I wanted to say is what to do when the guests have overstayed their welcome and you really want to go to bed and you're tired. And I think rather than tiptoeing around or trying to be over polite, as if you really, really need to go to bed at that point and need people to leave, then you need to be pretty clear about it. And you must say, I've really enjoyed our visit, but I'm afraid I'm exhausted and I need to go to bed now. So, I'm not intending to be rude, but I think we're going to have to say goodnight. And if you put it in a gentle way, it'll be fine. It's, the worst thing is to have somebody who stays 2 hours longer than you wanted them to stay and to not say anything, because you'll be the one suffering for it later. Okay, so the guest job, the tasks for the guest. What to bring. I said we'd talk about this in a little bit. So if the hostess or the host says to you, don't bring anything, then that really doesn't mean don't bring anything. You always should come with something in hand, unless there's some particular reason why you're not able to do that. So bringing either a bottle of wine or a bouquet of flowers or a nice loaf of bread that you've baked or something, or some jam or something nice. A hostess gift would be nice. Some candles, just any little thing that says, I really appreciate the time that you've taken to make this food and to have us into your home. Because, entertaining takes time. It takes organizing, thinking, planning, and it takes tidying up and making your home welcoming and all of the rest of it. And some people go all out and some people are very casual about it, but it still involves a fair bit of work and a fair bit of expense, depending on how fancy you're getting. So a thank you gift or a little hostess gift of some kind would be the polite thing to do. One of the things on the same same line as a hostess gift, would be a thank you afterwards. So a really polite thing that used to happen is that after you'd had a nice meal at someone's home, you would send them a little note, a little thank you card saying, we really enjoyed our night last night. Thank you so much again for having us. It was fun to see you. Hope to see you soon. Signed, and then your name, right? Something really quick. Well, thank you cards and snail mail have sort of gone the way of the dodo. So an email or a text is perfectly acceptable now. So just sending a little email or a text saying, it was really fun last night. Thank you so much. Glad that we could get together. We had fun, something like that. It's just a really, really polite, good communication, and people really appreciate that you let them know how much fun you had and what a good time it was. So thank you. Saying thank you afterwards is the next day, later that day or evening is a wonderful thing. Another thing that people want to know is when to arrive. So this whole business of being on time, being early, being fashionably late, and what does that mean? So I would say being early is probably not a good thing. Sometimes people are running around at the last minute, tidying up and doing last minute preparations, and to arrive, more than a couple of minutes before the agreed upon time is actually bordering on rude or uncomfortable for some people. So it's better to be on time, which is perfectly fine and polite, or a little tiny bit late, but not much. I would say not more than about 15 minutes, because if someone has created some kind of a fancy meal that is all timed, with an appetizer and a fancy drink and, things that are coming out of the oven at a certain time, to throw off their clock by more than about 15 minutes can mess everything up, especially if they're doing something rather complicated. So it's probably best to be within a 15-minute window if you're going to be late at all, and otherwise just try and get there on time. If you have to cancel for some reason, cancel as soon as you possibly know that you can't make the intended invitation, because again, people have spent money and time getting ready, shopping, preparing, cooking, doing all sorts of things, and the more notice you can give, the better, and hopefully it's something that can be rescheduled for another time. Cleaning up. If you are a guest, it is a really good idea to offer at least to help clean up. Now, the host might say, no, we're not going to clean up, and that's just fine. But otherwise, it is very good manners and very polite to offer at least to start to clean up, clearing the tables and cleaning up in the kitchen a little bit and putting food away and that kind of thing. Even if it's just a little bit to get stuff off the table and back into the kitchen would be helpful. When to leave? When should guests leave? And guests should actually be paying attention to the cues that their hosts are giving them. So if people are shifting a lot in their seats, and if it's been a couple of hours and people are yawning and that kind of thing, paying attention to body language and communication there would be a wise thing to do, because you really don't want to overstay your welcome and stay longer than the people are comfortable with having you there. So paying attention to that and being aware of that is a good thing. And you can actually come right out and say, we don't have anywhere to be tonight, but you guys have to work in the morning, so let us know, when you need to go to bed, and we'll get out of your hair. And if you're straight up about it, sometimes that's the best form of communication. Sometimes you can just tell when everybody's talked about everything they want to talk about, and you've had dinner and it's a couple of hours later. That's probably reasonable. It depends on what the event is. If people are having fun and willing to sit around into the wee hours, then that's great too. It depends on the kind of party, of course, and the company that you're keeping. So, and then food, again, taking food home. If you bring food, if you bring wine, if you bring alcohol, the polite thing to do is to leave it there and to offer to leave it there. And if the hostess is happy taking it, then put the food into a hostess or host container and take your own dish out of the way, take it home to wash it, and leave them with whatever goodies it is that you have brought. That's the polite thing to do. And they might protest and they might want you to take it home, and that's just fine, but at least the offer is there. And the same goes with if you bring a bottle of wine or some kind of alcoholic beverage, is to, if you bring 6 beers with you and 2 or 3 get consumed, then the other 2 or 3 or whatever stay. And just leave them. That's the polite thing to do. It appears to be cheap if you take that home, and it's just the more polite thing to do. And I'm just looking at something I had written down here, and I'm thinking that one of the questions a lot of people seem to have is what to wear. What to wear. And if you're worried about that, when you get the invitation, you might just fire off a little email or a note to the person and say, is this casual or is this formal? Is this a fancy dress affair or is this something more casual or laid back? And so you'll know from the people who have invited you whether they are normally, jeans and t-shirts kind of people or people who dress up a little bit more. And usually if it's a dinner at someone's home, it would be a little bit more dressy than perhaps an outdoor barbecue where people will be in, summer clothes and more relaxed. So I would always err on the side of dressing up a little bit more than dressing down if you're wondering about it and you're not sure. Or it might just be just as easy to phone the person who invited you and ask the question. Because that kind of communication is very, very clear, and I like clear communication. So those are all of the tips and the ideas that I have for you right now. I hope that you get lots of invitations out to dinner and dinner parties and summer barbecues if it's summer in your corner of the world where you're listening. I know for some of you who are listening, it's not summer. I know we've got people over on the other side of the world listening, and so just keep this in mind when your warm weather rolls around. And so that is all I have to say on this subject. I hope that you are having a great July and that I will hear from some of you at some point. Again, this is Jenn Swanson, and this is Communication Diva. And I would really appreciate you coming over and saying hello at www.communicationdiva.com. For everyone and all of the people listening all around the world, I want to say thank you. Have a good night.